We have a saying around the office. Would you, if you had a choice between playing a perfectly innovated game or a perfectly executed game, which would you do? And the answer for us is always perfectly executed, because an innovative game that's poorly executed is not a good game. But a game that's executed very, very well is always a great game.
Well, I don't know about that. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Diablo 3 today. I've been playing this game for 11 years now, kind of on and off, but in total I've got 3,000 hours of playtime among all of my characters, and I kind of want to talk about the evolution of this game and just kind of share my thoughts on how it's transformed and whether that's for the better or worse. So let's go ahead and dive into Phase 1, Launch Day. And Launch Day was an absolute disaster. It was terrible. Nobody could log into the game. Error 37 became the biggest meme on the internet. When things finally calmed down a little bit, people started getting into the game, and everything was going relatively okay until we got to Act 2 Inferno. Act 2 of Inferno was a complete disaster. Not only was it incredibly overtuned and very difficult, there were also a lot of bugs, especially the one that sticks out was the wasp bug, where you wouldn't see the little wasps. They were invisible, and they did so much damage it could absolutely take you out in a moment, and you wouldn't even have any kind of animation to warn you that they were there. So this is where the problem begins. To get through Act 2, you need items from Act 2, 3, and 4, but you can't beat Act 2, so you can't get the higher eye-level items. During this time, one class that really shined was the Barbarian, and unfortunately I was not a Barbarian, but they would stack life on hit and a bunch of defense. They would very slowly take down enemies, but at least they could survive. Now, this level of difficulty didn't actually really last that long. They nerfed Inferno about 3 to 4 weeks into the game. For the players that were able to get through this, especially players who were able to get through this without a Barbarian, that's pretty impressive. I would venture to say a lot of them probably got through it by using the real money auction house, but there were certainly a group of skilled players that were able to get through and get these higher item level items. At this point, most players had a choice to either quit the game or go to the real money auction house and spend some money to get one of these better items. So of course, this caused a huge uproar in the community, people very unhappy with the fact that in order to progress, they felt obligated to spend some kind of money. Either that or they would go to the crypts prior to Leoric and they would break all of the pots, searching for as much gold as they can, and then take that gold and go spend it on some better gear. Obviously, this gameplay is not particularly engaging. I remember breaking pots for hours on end, just trying to farm up some gold so that I could get better items. Like most other people, I quickly realized that this was a really boring way to play a game. And the alternative, of course, to breaking pots at this time, and probably the most efficient thing that you could be doing in all of Diablo 3, is not actually playing the game at all, but instead just going on the real money auction house, waiting for somebody to post something a little too cheap, buying it up and selling it for more. Flipping items on the auction house during this time of Diablo was far and large the most effective thing that you could be doing with your time to gear out your character, to gain riches, to then gear out your character. Or maybe instead you take all of this money that you're making from flipping items and buying a WoW sub with it so you could actually play a decent game. Another major problem during this time was itemization. I especially remember this with weapons, where blue and yellow weapons would have way higher maximum DPS than legendaries could. The best bow that I was able to get from my Demon Hunter off the auction house was a blue bow that just happened to have a really high damage number. Prior to the Inferno nerf, about 3 to 4 weeks into the game, I definitely wasn't good enough at Diablo 3, at least not yet, to get through Act 2. I'd love to go back in time with all of my knowledge about this game now and actually give that a shot again. It'd be kind of fun if they released some kind of retro version of Diablo 3 so that we could all give it a try now that we have a lot of knowledge about this game. So for the sake of this video, I will say that Phase 1 of this game was only about the first 3 to 4 weeks when they were kind of fixing everything up, and then they did the nerf to Inferno. So if I had to rate Phase 1 on a scale of 1 to 10, I would honestly give it a 1. It was terrible. There was really nothing good about it. It was nice for a very small select few players, especially the ones who rolled Barbarian and really stacked up that life on hit. But even most people that I knew who did that said that the game was still really boring because combat was just so slow. So moving on to what I would call Phase 2 of Diablo 3, we now have the Inferno nerf. I believe this was patch 1.0.3 if I'm not mistaken. It was definitely early into the life cycle of the game. Unfortunately, at this point in time, there was already this mass exodus of players. People who had just played for the first few weeks, a lot of them were just completely done with the game after seeing what a mess it was when it had launched. Now, I've said this a lot before on my channel, but one thing that I really believe about this game, especially given how many copies were sold, if they had actually made a good launch, if they had taken more time, if they were given more time to really smooth out the game and fix all of these bugs prior to launching it, I think we would have way higher player retention today. But now here we are, Inferno is nerfed, and at this point in time, we are actually able to get the item level 61 to 63 items, which are the best ones in the game, in all acts of Inferno. And so Act 2, 3, 4 were, of course, all nerfed and made easier, but if you still couldn't beat those, at least you could farm in Act 1 and get these good items. But at this point in time, there were no paragon levels, and one issue that I remember having a lot was playing and actually feeling like I was losing progress by logging on every day. If I didn't get some kind of epic drop or something of value that would upgrade my character, I would usually go on, have to spend a bunch of gold in repairs and on other miscellaneous things, and by the time I was getting off, all that really changed is that I had less gold. So at this point in the game, gold farming is pretty essential, especially since the Real Money Auction House also has the section where we can sell items for gold. So the value of gold is incredibly high, and if you're playing and you're not getting any items, and you're just losing gold, it just feels so terrible. I would absolutely regret even logging on and playing for 5 hours, and so that was pretty discouraging. Now at this point in time, we also had a lot of bots coming onto the scene and a lot of people farming gold and just magic finding with bots, which kind of really flooded and ruined the Real Money Auction House. This is especially problematic when real money was involved. On top of that, we had been promised PvP very soon after launch, and they kept saying that it was coming and it was coming, but it started at this point to seem like maybe it wasn't. And at this point, I don't have too much more to say about this phase of Diablo 3. It was just kind of discouraging to log on some days and really made me want to play other games instead. Now I'm going to go into Phase 3 where we get paragon levels. This is patch 1.0.4, and the game definitely changed at this point. This was designed in a way to negate the negative effects of feeling like you're logging on and losing progress. Even if I logged on and I didn't find anything and I lost gold, at least I was gaining paragon levels. When paragon levels were first introduced, of course we could only get up to 100, but it took a lot longer than getting to paragon 100 today. Getting to paragon 100 today is probably a 1 hour or less task, and back then it definitely took a long time. This is also a really great feature because with each paragon level, we actually gained magic find and gold find. I believe it was 3% to each per paragon level, and so over time we really started to see a lot more gold coming into our characters, making this a little less problematic. One thing that I remember reading back in the day and was actually able to find the post again on the Blizzard website, they'd made the claim that the time to reach the upper paragon levels approximates the long-term time investment required to get a level 99 character in Diablo 2. As somebody who actually reached paragon level 100 back then, I can absolutely say with certainty that 99 in Diablo 2 takes substantially longer. Now I know that they made the grind to 99 a lot easier in D2R, but of course that wasn't out at the time when paragon levels were introduced. Although it definitely didn't take as long as it would to get to 99 in Diablo 2, it was certainly a grind. I remember playing a Barbarian at the time. I had switched over from Demon Hunter to Barbarian and was playing Whirlwind. At this point in time, the game had completely turned into me spinning on Rakkus Crossing all day long. And although it became pretty repetitive, I really started enjoying the game at this point in time because there was something to build my character up to. There was some kind of goal that I had wanted to reach, and that was getting Paragon level 100 and getting all the best gear along the way. And I'd say for a pretty long time, this was a lot of fun. It definitely took a bit of time to get to Paragon level 100. However, when I finally did get there, I had just about all best in slot gear, maybe missing one or two pieces. It's kind of hard to remember because it was so long ago, but my barbarian was certainly stacked. After reaching Paragon level 100, there was a huge problem though. I was incredibly bored. There was nothing that I felt like there was left to do. My only options at that point in time were to start another character and try to do the Paragon 100 grind again, or just keep playing my barbarian just for the purpose of maybe getting that one item that's not rolled perfectly on my character. But farming for that item became really tedious because, of course, I'm not gaining Paragon levels anymore. I've hit the cap, so every day that I log in, if I don't find that item, it kind of felt like it was a waste of time. So after hitting Paragon 100, I would venture to say that I probably only played the game for maybe 2 more weeks before I took a pretty long break. A big issue with the game at this point in time was that there were no seasons yet, so once you got your character stacked out, that was it. I guess you could go play hardcore, you could start a different character, but that was pretty much it. The game definitely had an end to it. For example, if you started one of each character and you got them all to Paragon level 100, which would definitely take some time, there just wouldn't be any incentive for you beyond that to continue playing the game. This, of course, differed from Diablo 2 in a really big way because we were used to having seasons and constantly starting new characters, fresh economies, which really kept the game engaging pretty much all the time. But if I had to rate the game at this point in time, where we're still at Paragon level 100, I would definitely say from Phase 1 to Phase 3, Diablo 3 went from about a 1 out of 10 to probably about a 7 out of 10 for me. I had a really good time getting that barbarian to 100, and for how much the game costs, I certainly got my value out of it. I played several hundreds of hours. But moving into Phase 4, we're going to talk about Reaper of Souls coming out and the start of seasons. At long last, the Real Money Auction House was removed, and this was huge news for a lot of players who were really not into playing a game that had a real money auction house. One downside though was that they had completely eliminated trading unless you happened to be in a game with another player and that item dropped for you. You could transfer that item over to them. Outside of that, there was no exchanging of gold or items between players anymore. But finally, with the introduction of seasons, we finally got some replayability with this game. I would say the biggest change from Phase 3 to Phase 4 was farming Rakkus Crossing all day long to farming Greater Rifts all day long. Granted, at the time when Greater Rifts first came out, it was really exciting because I wasn't just farming the same map over and over and over. We actually got a nice, large variety of different maps, and still to, I wouldn't say this day, but fairly recently, they've added more maps to Greater Rifts, and they've got a whole bunch of different monster sets, and so there is a huge number of possibilities that you can encounter inside of a Greater Rift. So I would ultimately say this was certainly more fun than farming the same area. It was nice to finally see a variety, even if it was just running through a portal, talking to a guy, closing a portal, doing it again. Repetitive, but at least there was some kind of variety. And of course, with seasons coming out, I want to say about 5 months after the launch of Reaper of Souls, we finally had leaderboards. Now, I'm the farthest thing from being a great player, but it's still really nice to have a leaderboard and some kind of incentive to compete against other players. Bots undoubtedly ruin the leaderboards to some extent, but it's still fun to see where you can get, especially if you're a lower Paragon level and you're able to get a pretty high GR clear. Seasons were a little bit rough at the start though. Blizzard seemed to have kind of no idea how long they should make a season. Season 1 was about 150-ish days, I think maybe a little longer than that, but just about over 5 months, whereas Season 2, I want to say, was just under 2 months. It's a little discouraging playing in a seasonal game where your first season you got 5 months, and your second season you might think you have all this time, but instead you've got less than half of the time you did before to get your character all set up. Now, I was playing back in the start of seasons, Season 1 and Season 2, and I don't really recall if Blizzard had told us at the time that they planned on making Season 2 a lot shorter. If anybody remembers that, go ahead and drop a comment down below, but it was certainly inconsistent. By Season 3, we were up to about 4 months at that point in time, and season duration kind of just hopped all over the place, and even to this day, it kind of seems like Blizzard hasn't really figured it out yet. The idea became 3 months. At a certain point in time, that's what they had decided on, but it never really follows that schedule. Just our last season, Season 27, was about 5 months. Personally, I don't really mind a longer season, but season starts are definitely the most fun part of Diablo 3 when the community is really alive. You've got a ton of people watching streams and just a very lively community. Now for me, I'm going to say that Phase 4 kind of lasted a pretty long time. I would say it was the start of Reaper of Souls all the way up to about Season 13. So again, if I had to rank this game during this particular phase of Reaper of Souls through Season 13, I would still say it was probably about a 7 out of 10 for me. Although a lot of things had been improved when they launched the expansion, the game was just a lot different, and season length was inconsistent, and there wasn't much bringing you back every season. It was just really repetitive. With each few seasons, they would definitely add a few more items, but generally the game just felt a little bit flat. But moving on to Phase 5, where I would say starts about Season 14, this is when they introduced the idea of doing seasonal themes. The issue with the start of this phase is seasonal themes were really boring. In Season 14, we had double goblins, so of course, each time you encounter a goblin, you find 2. This did not impact the goblin hordes, but you still got more goblins, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't really that exciting. Season 15 kind of followed the same suit. It wasn't really all that innovative, they just gave you more stuff. And so we got double bounty bags. I would say Season 16, though, is when the game kind of started to pick up a little bit. This was the first season they introduced a theme that gave us some real power. We got the Ring of Royal Grandeur on our character without having to wear it or put it in the cube. Season 17 was another real taste of power, and it was really fun because that was the Legacy of Nightmare season, where without having to wear the ring set, we got the bonus of the Legacy of Nightmares, so we didn't have to wear sets. It kind of felt like the first time where we were really encouraged to not use sets and just wear the best gear that we could find. This was a pretty nice change of pace and pretty exciting for the community. And moving along, we had some decent seasons in 18 and 19, but moving on to 20, that was a very fun season where we could put any item in any slot in Kanai's cube. At this point in time, it was becoming pretty clear that seasonal themes were actually becoming a little bit innovative. This was really nice because it encouraged a lot of theory crafting, and at this point in time, it was kind of becoming clear that seasons were actually a big deal now. There was something new that really shook up the game, and it wasn't just the same old, maybe with a slight twist. So for Phase 5, where we have Seasons 14 through 20, this is kind of the learning phase for seasonal themes for Blizzard, and I would rank this about a 7.5 out of 10. The game was definitely getting better and had a reason for people to come back each season. And moving on to Phase 6, I would call this the modern phase, what is going on right now from Seasons 21 through 28. I would say that the game has become a lot more casual friendly by this phase. Power creep has come really far, but monsters haven't really gotten any stronger. At this point in time, Torment 16 has absolutely become a joke, and it's pretty easy to farm GRs at least up to a pretty good tier, get a high paragon level, and by Season 28, really modern times, it's pretty easy to get a GR 150 if you put in a bit of effort. What's really nice about modern Diablo 3 is that I really do feel like a lot more people have progressively come back to this game. With the game becoming a little more casual friendly, I think this has been ultimately a good thing. A lot more people are interested in coming back to the game. They can clear all the way up to the highest content with the strongest characters, but it also still leaves a challenge for the really top tier players who want to compete on set-specific leaderboards. The set-specific leaderboards were a fantastic addition to the game because it really gave us some incentive to play other builds that aren't necessarily quite as strong. Another element about the modern era of the game is just how fast it is to get your gear and get your augments and kind of feel like you're done with the game. And I'm really not sure if this is a good thing or a bad thing, especially since the introduction of Echoing Nightmares. It is faster than ever to get a character fully set up and ready to go. Gone are the days where we had to get our level 1 gems, level them all the way up as high as we could just to augment a single piece of gear. Now we just go into an Echoing Nightmare and get a rank 125 gem. As convenient as this is, it really does kind of shorten the duration that most people are going to play in a season. Granted, it was still an addition of new content. It's very nice to see the introduction of Echoing Nightmares just because it's something else to do outside of Greater Rifts. But of course, after all this time, the endgame is still ultimately spent in Greater Rifts. Probably about 70 to 90% of your time you're going to be in a greater rift. And as repetitive as this is, I definitely enjoy grindy games, just having Netflix up on one screen and my Diablo on the other screen. It is very evident though, especially in this modern era, how much work the dev team has been putting in. I was absolutely amazed with what they did in Season 27. I'm sure that took a lot of work, coding all of these angelic crucibles, basically creating brand new builds for every single class. This also came with the designing of so many different animations that did not exist in the game before. One example being the Fist of the Heavens Crusader. When you're running by on the horse and you've got comets falling from the sky, I'm sure it took them quite a bit of effort to really code everything for Season 27. Although I'm a little less impressed by Season 28, at least from the perspective of how much effort they had to put in to make it happen, I'm still having a really good time, and it was a fun seasonal theme to get this Altar of Rites. Now, a lot of people may disagree with me, but if I had to rank modern day Diablo 3 on a 1 to 10 scale, I'd probably give it about an 8.5. I really see the dev team putting in a lot of work to make this game better. I have grinded more than ever in these past few seasons, and I've tried so many different builds that I would have never tried before, especially because I'm motivated by those set specific leaderboards. At the end of the day, it's really hard to rank this game overall. If you consider everything from day one to the present, I can't really give it a number on a 1 to 10 scale, because it's just completely transformed from where it started. With Diablo 4 right around the corner, I'm not really sure if I'm going to ever come back to Diablo 3. But at the same time, when Diablo 3 launched, I was pretty confident I wouldn't play Diablo 2 ever again, and that was definitely not the case. But who knows though, when Diablo 4 comes out and I've played it and that honeymoon phase is kind of over, maybe I'll feel a little nostalgic for some Diablo 3. If I do, I'll make sure to bring you guys some more content on this game, but I'm looking forward to moving into the future of this channel with Diablo 4 with you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and drop a comment down below. Let me know how you feel about Diablo 3 overall as a game. What was your favorite point in time of Diablo 3? Considering how much the game has changed over time, I'd be really curious to know which phase was the most fun for you guys. I'll go ahead and add all 6 of the phases to the description down below, and I'd be interested to know which point in time was your favorite. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.